All right, Garima, take it away.
All right, let's get it started. So, first of all, welcome everyone to the 46th annual MSVU Leaders and Learners Business and Tourism Conference. We are delighted you are able to attend, and we would also like to thank our distinguished panelists for giving this time to be here today. Before I introduce the panelists, I would like to take a few moments to tell you about the Leaders and Learners Conference and about our major sponsor, the Center for Women in Business. The Department of Business and Tourism at MSVU has been hosting this conference for 46 years. The name has changed over the years, but the purpose has not. We seek to provide our students with this opportunity to bring classroom lessons to life by allowing our students to showcase their knowledge, skill, and diversified talents to local businesses and industry professionals, who in turn provide our students with invaluable insight to world of business and tourism. This year looks different from other years because we cannot meet face to face, but it does not make the conference any less valuable. Thank you to all who have come out today, and we hope you take away new and valuable knowledge. The Center for Women in Business has been our longest supporter. The center is a leader in entrepreneurial growth and is the only university based business development center for women in Canada. They are located on the fourth floor of McCain Center, and the team is led by Tanya Prisky, Executive Director, and a group of dedicated staff who offer skill training and resources to women entrepreneurs across mainland Nova Scotia and in all stages of business development. The center opened in 1992 and next year will celebrate its 30th year of providing unparalleled service to women entrepreneurs in all aspects of business ownership from business management training to international trade missions. One final housekeeping note. If students have questions for our panel members, please type them into the chat box, and if time permits, we will provide them to our panelists. Without any further ado, I would now like to introduce our panelists. So I would like to start with Mr. Jason Hale, who is a partner at Grant Thornton. Jason is a tax partner in Halifax at Grant Thornton Limited Liability Partnership. He resides in Bedford, Nova Scotia, and leads the U.S. personal tax practice for Grant Thornton, Canada. Jason has been specializing in Canadian US taxation since 2002, and his practice primarily concentrates on US personal tax for the Maritimes. Jason was an instructor in Canadian Institute of Chartered Accountants in-depth tax program, an instructor for the Nova Scotia Institute of Chartered Accountants, and an instructor for the Atlantic School of Chartered Accountants. He regularly lectures across Canada on various US Canadian tax topics and is very active in the community. Jason sat on the Canadian Institute of Chartered Accountants Board of Examiners for 3 years and currently is the president of Board and District Minor Hockey. Now, moving on to our next panelist, Claudette Potter, who is Vice President of Finance at Emera. Claudette Potter started her career with the Emera family at Nova Scotia Power. She held various financial positions at NSP, ending up as a Vice President of Finance and IT. She continued her career as a president of Emera Utility Services, one of the largest utility services contractor in Atlantic Canada. She is currently Vice President of Finance for Emera Incorporated. In this role, she is responsible for the global finances of the company. Before joining the Emera family, she held leadership roles with variety of organizations, including X-Wave, an IT company, Semfra Atlantic Gas, and Grant Thornton, where high integrity and professional reputation led to her rapid career progression. Claudette has contributed time and talent to the accounting profession in the areas of education and protection of the public. She has generously mentored hundreds of CPA finalist students, provided leadership to women in the profession, and dedicated significant hours to ensuring ethical practice standards. She currently volunteers with CPA Nova Scotia as a member of the Complaints Committee. Claudette is also active in the community as a member of Boards of Director of the United Way and Secretary of Minor Hockey Association. She led the most successful United Way campaign ever at the Emera and similarly has led annual fundraising campaigns for Hockey Association. Claudette grew up in Cape Breton and currently lives in Halifax with her husband Sean and two children, Shay and Michael. Her family has also welcomed high school and university billets into their home. Now, moving on to our last but not the least panelist, Mr. Glenn Squires, who is CEO of Pacrim Hospitality. With over 40 years of hospitality development and management experience, Mr. Squires is an hotelier first and foremost. His never-ending and unwavering dedication to guest experience guides him as he collaborates in the development and operation of hotels, ensuring that all hotels exceed guest expectations. In 1997, Mr. Squires co-founded Pacrim Hospitality Services Incorporated, a hotel development and management company. From November 2004 to December 2011, Mr. Squires was the CEO and co-founder of Holloway Lodging, a hotel real estate investment company. In 1994, Mr. Squires was instrumental in the startup of a hospitality division within Fortis Property Incorporated, a subsidiary of Fortis Incorporated, a diversified international electric utility holding company with investment primarily in regulated electric distribution utility in Canada and Caribbean regions. Mr. Squires is the past chair of IHG, Intercontinental Hotel Group's owner association, and has sat on numerous hotel brands and tourism-related boards and committees. He was awarded Developer of the Year, Canada by IHG, International Development Award by Windium Worldwide, and received the Vision Award from Nova Scotia Tourism Industry Association. Glenn has passion to give back to his community. In 2002, he set up a Pacrim Scholarship Fund for students at Nova Scotia's Mount St. Vincent University's Tourism and Hospitality degree program and is passionate supporter for Give Kids the World. So this was an introduction for all of our panelists. I hope this helped all of our students to know more about our panelists and will give insights to our questions and their answers. So now moving on to our questions for our panelists. I will start with the first question, and the way this will work is like I can ask one of you to answer first and then we can go in series. So say if Jason was to answer first, then Claudette could follow, then Glenn, and next time we can start with Claudette, and the third time we could start with Glenn. That way all of you have equal opportunity to start at the first time and no one is left last. So I will start with my first question, and Mr. Jason could begin with it. Can you please tell us about your organization's vision and purpose?
Yeah, and just to give everybody on the line a little background, Grant Thornton is a national accounting firm, really in three service lines. We have a tax service line, an audit service line, and an advisory service line with approximately, say, 5,000 team members kind of coast to coast, and offices kind of in every small to mid-size and large city in Canada. So our purpose, when we look at our purpose and we look at our vision, it's very well documented and it is very near to dear to Grant Thornton. Our purpose is really to help our clients, colleagues, and communities thrive. So we really have divided our purpose really into three kind of pillars: clients, colleagues, communities. Really with that, the goal to make sure that we help each of those pillars thrive as much as possible. Our vision, of course, to kind of tie into that purpose would really for all of us to be exceptional business advisors. So we're all trying to be business advisors, but working within that Grant Thornton purpose. And I guess one thing that really makes Grant Thornton unique, I think, is culture remains our number one priority coast to coast. So above everything else, we are very focused on our culture and really focused on this idea that people come first. So, we will never kind of stray away from that kind of idea. That culture is key to our success. And that people first mentality is really what makes us a real special firm, I think, in Canada. We do have a culture code that all team members, all partners have to adhere to. That sets out our expectations to support that culture. And we also have very well documented values that focus on things like collaboration, leadership, agility, respect, responsibility, to really ensure that we're aligned on this kind of culture code, people first mentality.
Well, I definitely believe like culture is very important for an organization. Like we read in our organizational behavior classes, culture is what defines like the success in some ways. So thank you so much. And now I could take the same question to Miss Claudette.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to participate today. It's great to see the Mount St. Vincent community. I'm an alumni. I did my undergraduate many moons ago. And I drive by your university every single day and always remember attending there. So thank you for having me. I work for Emera. I'm part of the Emera family. Emera is a publicly traded company that is headquarters in Halifax. So very lucky to be able to live and do this great work in our home province. What we're all about really is around safely delivering cleaner, affordable, and reliable energy to our communities. And it's very key for us. Safety is number one. We live and breathe safety. It's part of our culture. It will always be a part of our culture. And it is our number one priority. We will not do something unless it's able to be done safely. We firmly believe in our culture that every accident is preventable. And we live and breathe that every single day. Through that safety, we want to deliver cleaner energy to our communities. It's very important to us. Energy companies get a little bit of a bad rap, but we're really pushing ourselves to deliver cleaner energy. We also want to be very reliable. Our belief is we want our energy to be able to be relied upon every single minute of every single day. And we work hard towards achieving that. And we want to balance all of that with having affordable energy rates. We're located across North America, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia being where we started with Nova Scotia Power. We now own utilities in Florida, 2 in Florida, New Mexico. We also have 2, which is great for recruiting. We have 1 in Barbados and 1 in Bahamas, which people love to hear and visit there. So that's kind of, we're really North American driven. We also have a trading business on the northeast of the US, which is interesting, not regulated, but very interesting piece of our business. We have about $5 billion in revenue, about 30 billion in assets. We have about 2.5 million customers who are our priority, and about 7,500 employees across our company. So the culture we've built is very, I always say it's East Coast culture, which we've really been able to transition throughout the organization. Back in 2016, we did purchase a company, Tampa Electric, which owned Tampa Electric People's Gas in Tampa, as well as New Mexico. And we actually merged with a company that was the exact same size as us, actually a little bit bigger. So trying to take 2 different cultures and kind of combine them was an interesting process. But our culture is very much around engagement and innovation. And that's taken a while to manage and to get ingrained into the organization. And we're also very focused on ESGs, and I'm not sure if folks know what that concept is, but investors who invest in companies like ours are very concerned around ESGs. And what that is looking at the environment, social, and governance. And those 3 areas are very important to investors. So it's getting us focused on making sure we're doing what's right for the environment. How are we progressing with GHGs and all that sort of stuff, as well as society around community engagement, community involvement, as well as governance. Do we have, what is our diversity within our organization and our employee base? So they're all things we're kind of striving against, but it really is about safely delivering cleaner, affordable, reliable energy for our customers.
No, I mean, clean energy is really the future. Like, we all are targeting towards that. And I agree. Like, I think developed countries like Canada and America are doing much better in comparison to the other countries out in East, like India, where I come from. So having this aim is just mind blowing. So moving on to Mr. Squires, what do you think? Sorry, can you please tell us about your organization's vision and purpose?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, we're in the development and management and operation of hospitality businesses, predominantly hotels, but we've done a number of other businesses, restaurants and those sorts of things. And we tend to be very geographically dispersed. We've had as many as 60 hotels at one time, from St. John's to Yellowknife, Vancouver to Phoenix and South Florida, as well as in Europe. So with that sort of diversity, we've developed tools over the years so that we can have consistent messages across the company, taking into account the various types of hotels that we may operate and the areas that we operate. So from a statement of how we identify ourselves, our goal is to be best in class in every hotel or business that we operate. And that doesn't necessarily mean that every hotel that you're going to have is going to be a 5-star hotel. If we look at a product like a Holiday Inn Express, there are probably 4,000 Holiday Inn Expresses in the world. So our goal for our Holiday Inn Express product is to be the best Holiday Inn Express, and we can take that because we operate from 3-star to 5-star hotels. So being the best in each category is somewhat different. We do that by defining objective measurements, and the ones that we utilize are market share, employee engagement, customer satisfaction, product quality, financial results, and community participation. And what we find when we do those is then from the top of the organization to a line level employee, we all share the same goals, and we're able to look at those objective results, see where we're performing well, see where we're not performing well, and identify strategies so that someone who may be a room attendant will understand the goals for her department and how she can affect the overall results of the hotel. So we found that to be very, very useful. As a matter of fact, when I was the chairman of the Intercontinental Hotel Owners Organization, IHG actually adopted what they call their winning metrics, which was a derivative of what we do in our company as how they would set standards across their company. So the second thing is we are very, very keen on being innovators and being first in class. We've been the first to introduce probably about 8 different brands to Atlantic Canada, brands like Holiday Inn, Hampton Inn, Eastside Marriott, Super 8, Radisson, and a number of other ones. So that area, obviously technology today is very important. And then finally, the other thing that we look for across the company is our goal is to make sure or to endeavor to enrich the lives of everybody that we come in contact on a daily basis, whether that be our employees, our customers, or our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Glenn. I mean, I'm myself a tourism student, and just studying about it, I feel like tourism industry and hotel industry in special is very complex. Like there are so many things to take care of and people to deal with, but the way your organization is handling it, it seems perfect. Well, now moving on to our next question. What was the path that you took to get where you are today? Can you include in your answer a few challenges that you had to overcome? We could start with Claudette this time.
Oh, thank you. So the path wasn't the straightest path in the world, but I think that's okay. So if you're sitting in university and you don't know where you want to end up, that is okay. I decided that I wanted to get my basics done. So after I graduated from university, I did do a professional designation. I got my CPAs. I wanted to get the basics of business. My family had some businesses, so I wasn't sure, did I want to do that? Did I want to do my own thing? So I just wanted to get the basics. So I spent a few years doing that. Jason, hopefully maybe you're happy to know I did it with Grant Thornton, they were amazing to me. So I did that for a few years, but did realize I didn't want to be in a firm as part of my career. So I decided to start, just going out and getting some jobs, some experience. And I really looked at it as how many experiences can I get to build my skill set? And once I got the basics. So I started in a construction company. It was a natural gas company, but it was building the natural gas lines. So I started there, did that for a few years. Then I knew I needed to get some different experience. So I went on and worked for an IT company, which was basically selling people. We were a system integrator. So the public, trying to figure out how to sell those people to make some money for our shareholders. Then someone asked me to go work at Nova Scotia Power. I said, yeah, okay, I'll go for a year, maybe a year and a half, sleepy utility. I'm not into that. I like more entrepreneurial. But once I got into it, there was so much going on and the opportunities of growth was humongous at that time and continues to be. I spent the rest of my career actually working with the Emera family. I've had about probably 10 jobs in different things. They were very supportive of us trying different things to gain our skill sets. I did everything from regulatory to finance. I ran their construction company, which was building power lines and substations. Did that. That was a lot of fun. Now I'm back on the VP of finance side. Did a merger and acquisitions, sold some companies. So really got to put my hands into everything. Some of the challenges that I did face as I was going through it was, there's the point where do you change roles, do you not change roles? And it's very difficult sometimes to make that decision. And I never was a big one for titles. Titles didn't matter to me. So I took a lot of position changes more than most by moving sideways as well as moving up. So because I wanted a different view of things, I wanted to work with different managers or mentors, and I wanted to get different experiences. That's a challenge sometimes, especially when you're going into something that you really know nothing about. I went into IT not knowing anything about IT, but I knew I had the skill sets. I knew I had the basics of business. And that's kind of the path that I've taken. I've worked really hard. I never worried about the end game. I just did what I thought was best. And as long as I was learning, I was a happy person. The other thing on the path that I did was I did start volunteering early. And I think being involved in our communities is so critical to the skills we're able to develop. It's skills that you can move into the business very easy. I find it easier to move those skills in than move business skills out into volunteering or nonprofit type work. But any advice on that path, think about your community involvement, just like you do about your career. And both will help each other, guaranteed it, because the contacts you make, the rewards you get are multiples ahead of anything where your career path will take you. So that's kind of the path I took. There was never an end game in it, and I'm still on the path. I know I'm getting older, but I still think there's a few years left in me. So I'll pass it on.
Claudette, it was wonderful hearing all about it. Like, I personally do believe, like, in today's world, diversification is more valued over, like, say, 10 years of experience in same position, because now people are looking for how many talents you could bring it to the plate. And I think you just did it at very right time, which is amazing. Now, moving on to Mr. Squires with the same question. What was the path that you took to get where you are today? Can you please include in your answer a few challenges you had to overcome? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I ended up here by accident. I was married quite young. I was only 18 when I was married, and my wife and I decided that we wanted to travel. So we traveled around North America, working in the hospitality industry. And then when I was about 24, 25, I learned that we were going to have our first child, and it was time for me to get serious about life. So I decided that I would go back to university and ultimately go on to law school. But seeing that financially we didn't have a proverbial pot, I had no choice but to find a job. So the job that I found was at the local Holiday Inn, working the night audit, which was from midnight to late in the morning. Then I would go to school in the daytime and sleep for the few extra hours for 5 days a week. And basically, I found that I had a love for the hospitality industry. It came naturally to me. The company I worked with kept wanting to promote me, and I had a conflict. I said, I can't do this job because I've got a full course load. But ultimately, I made the decision to go on into the hotel industry. And I was very fortunate. I came across some great mentors. And then when I came with Pacrim, I did so on the condition that I had an ownership interest in the company, and over the years increased my ownership interest in the company with my other two partners. So the company that I originally worked for, so I think that, I think the key is I don't consider what I have to be a job. It's a vocation. I have an incredible passion for it. I don't consider it work. Everything that I observe around me is the hospitality industry. Whether I'm at a reception, whether I go into a supermarket, no matter what I do, I see people interacting and I learn. So I think the biggest thing for me is that I was very fortunate in that I had a job that I never considered to be work. And I had some incredible mentors along the way. So my first real, challenge was the first hotel that I took on. I asked to move to Halifax, Dartmouth, because my parents were here and my siblings. And I became manager of the Holiday Inn in Dartmouth. And I had believed that our hotel company operated all upstanding hotels. The property was so bad that the first night when I went back to my room, I literally cried. It was so bad. The first bedroom I went into, where the soap dish was supposed to be in the shower, there was a piece of green garbage bag taped over it, and it went downhill from there. But anyway, I sucked it up. I was only 27 years old. I went out and recruited a number of department heads like myself, young. And I think the reason that we succeeded is because we didn't really know what we weren't able to do. So anything was possible to us. And over the 6 or 7 years that we were there, we increased the profit by the hotel over 6 times. And our company sold it to another party, and we retained management. So the lesson that I learned there was probably the toughest challenge that I ever had, because it was so difficult. But it was probably the best opportunity that I ever had, because it taught me how to be resourceful, how to recruit a team, and how to turn adversity into positivity. So those are lessons that stayed with me all of my life. I think the other thing has been through COVID. I mean, our hotels have been on the front lines from day one. We've had customers coming into our hotel from day one, certainly when there were out protocols and we really didn't know what we were dealing with. So we had to adapt very, very quickly. We implemented daily phone calls with all of our hotels. And so we've had to, and we're obviously in the people business, so you're used to being in constant contact and touching your employees. We haven't been able to get out to the field. Our management in the individual locations, and as I said, every one of these hotels are different with different market conditions, have stood up financially. I don't think there are many more industries that have been more devastated than tourism and hospitality. It's estimated right now that about half of the job losses in Canada are in our sector. So financially, it's been very difficult. But what I can say about it is, once again, I've never been prouder of my staff, our staff, the way that our people have stepped up, the way that they've taken on extra responsibility. They haven't shirked. I've never had anybody ever say, I'm afraid to go to work. I'm not going to go to work because we may be. So I think that it's been, there's been a lot of adversity, but we've learned to do things differently. We've seen some silver linings and some innovation and some opportunities that we'll take out of it. But I think the biggest thing of that adversity is I think it's brought our team closer together to understand just how strong we are and what we believe is what's special about our company, and allowed us to, I think, to prosper during some very difficult times. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Glenn. It was like such a great insight to hospitality and tourism industry. And I wish all of us thought of our jobs in the same way as you do. It would be just wonderful world, right?
Yes.
Well, now moving on to Mr. Jason with the same question. What was the path that you took to get where you are today? Can you include in your answer a few challenges you had to overcome?
Yeah, thanks. For me, it's a question I think about quite a bit. How does a kid from Halifax end up becoming the national leader for U.S. personal tax for Grant Thornton? And the reason I think about it a lot is when I was young, all of my experience and all of my work was community service focused. So for about 10 years, I worked for Department of Community Services through a summer camping program for sexually and physically abused kids. So in the summers, I was working for community service, and in the winters, I was working for an organization called Regional Residential Service Society, which really specializes in small option homes for mentally challenged adults. So for about 10 years, I was very focused on community service, social work, and really that path. But I was an accounting student registered at St. Mary's, and really didn't know much about the industry, the business. I didn't have any knowledge about firms or how business really worked in the accounting world. And for me, it really came down to a simple decision when I was probably about 23 or 24. I could spend 4 years going and shifting my degree and changing towards a social work kind of degree, and and change my path. That would be 4 years to get my degree, and then 2 years to get my master's to move into the social work world. Or I could do 2 more years and finish my accounting degree and jump into a world that I knew nothing about. And it was a real tough time in my life because my heart was pushing me one way, but financially I had no resources to do 6 more years of university. So I chose the path of least resistance. I did a 2-year, I finished my 2-year accounting degree. At the time, I had to work full time. So I was working full time at Regional Residential Service Society, 40 to 50 hours a week. And I was overloading my courses at St. Mary's to try to finish my accounting degree and really get that base degree that I needed to move into, I guess, the real world. So that in itself was a challenge, but I'm very happy to say that, I maintained, a 3.8 to 4.0 GPA while I was doing that, but I was working to pay for my education. What's even more interesting, because I knew nothing about the accounting world, I also didn't go through CPA recruitment or CA recruitment. So a lot of the firms will go to the universities and recruit students into their practices. At the time, I was very anti-big firm. I didn't like egos. I didn't like, big, fancy suits, and I was very anti-big firm because I really didn't understand the business. So I didn't enter recruitment. I decided to boycott recruitment. So I finished my accounting degree. I didn't go through recruitment. And then I had a real life lesson I realized how hard it is to get into this profession. I started looking for employment. I started looking to a firm to sponsor me on my journey to become a CA. And unfortunately, there was, my opportunities were limited. I did find a firm in Bridgewater, Bella Bovino Chartered Accountants, absolute incredible firm. So I worked in Bridgewater for 2 years, but I lived in downtown Halifax. So I actually drove 2.5 hours a day for 2 years while I was studying for my CA exam and going through my course requirements to be able to write the final exam to become a CA. Fortunately, I wrote my exam. I passed my exam, but I also had a major car accident probably about 6 months prior to writing my exam. I got hit by a drunk driver on the 103. So that was a bit of a setback as well, both personally and professionally. But I managed to write the exam. I managed to study for the summer and scored extremely well on the CPA exam, and happily accepted my designation as a chartered accountant in an absolute terrific profession. What's interesting then is I really now had my base education. I had what I thought I wanted, but really, I probably would have preferred to go the community service route. Then I joined Grant Thornton 19 years ago. And really, that's where my professional journey began. And my focus changed, my outlook changed, and in tax. I started the lecture tour through anywhere that I could present on Canadian tax topics. So I lectured at the Atlantic School of Chartered Accountancy. I lectured for the Nova Scotia Institute of Chartered Accountancy. I lectured for the in-depth tax program for about 6 or 7 years, both their in-residence program and their group study program. And professionally, I was trying to build my brand and I was trying to build my reputation. So I was very focused on those activities. I was very, very fortunate to get the opportunity to sit on the board of directors for CPA Canada and actually participated in writing 3 of the uniform final exams and helped mark over 15,000 exams over a period of 3 or 4 years. What's interesting, a lot of people think I'm crazy, but I stepped off of the CPA Canada board to move on to the board of Bedford Minor Hockey. I really wanted to be in my local community, and I really thought I could help Bedford Minor Hockey, elevate in our community and really help build and strengthen that association. So I stepped off the CPA Canada board and I moved on to Bedford Minor Hockey. I did a 2-year VP of Finance there, 1 year as a controller, and then this is my 3rd year as president of the association. So everything was going really well, and everything, a real interesting journey on the education and professional development front. At work here or at Grant Thornton, I was a Canadian tax specialist, so all of my focus was Canadian tax, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And about 10 years ago, Grant Thornton came to me and asked me to lead the US tax practice for Grant Thornton, Nova Scotia. At the time, it's really interesting looking back because at the time we had approximately 50 US tax clients in Nova Scotia and let's say $200,000 of business. And I remember sitting in a room with a number of partners in my office, and I remember telling them that we're going to be the #1 US tax practice this side of Montreal. And another challenge I had, obviously, is a lot of people laughed at that. And a lot of people, thought it was an impossible dream. I'm really happy to say 10 years later, our Halifax office and our Nova Scotia business unit, we are the #1 US tax practice this side of Montreal. Today, I specialize in US tax now over the last 10 to 12 years. Today, we're doing approximately 1,700 to 1,800 US tax returns here from my office in the convention center. And, and I certainly feel we are the leading provider of US tax service for Atlantic. And we built that over a 10 to 12 year period. 5 years ago, Grant Thornton came to me and asked me to lead the US national tax practice for Grant Thornton, effectively to try to replicate our success on the East Coast nationally. At the time, we were doing, approximately 2,000 clients nationally. We've tripled the business since. So in 5 years, we've managed to triple our business, both from a net fee perspective, I guess a client perspective, and also from a number of team member perspective. So today I look after 50 plus team members coast to coast from Victoria to St. John. And our business, our path really, and our goal is to double that size of our business every 2 years. So we fully intend to go from 6,000 to 12,000 over the next 2 to 3 year period. Probably, so obviously today I spend a lot of time in Toronto and across the country helping lead the US practice nationally. And when I look back and think of some of the biggest challenges, there's really 2 or 3 that kind of come to mind for me. Number one, I think, very early, I really realized I knew it was my career. And I would encourage everybody on the line to really think about this. It is your career. It was my career. And I knew that I had to build it into whatever I wanted, both in my community, both within my team, and also within my professional development. So I knew early on that I would only get what I put into it. And I didn't want anybody just to give something to me, and I didn't want to just inherit something, and I just didn't want to, I knew that it was up to me to drive my own career. And I encourage our team coast to coast. I help with Grant Thornton's leadership coast to coast. I encourage all of our team members really to look in the mirror and say, it's up to you. What do you want from your career? What do you want for your life? And what do you want to contribute to your community? And you can have everything you want. The other big thing I think for me from a challenge perspective is all along the way, I had people tell me I was going to fail. And all along the way, I had people tell me I would never get there. I would never be a manager. I would never be a senior manager. I would never be a principal. I would never be a partner. I would never be a national leader. I would never be the number one US practice in Nova Scotia or the East Coast. All along the way, I had people doubting that we could get there. So not myself, but lots of people telling me, Grant Thornton's never going to make, a US tax partner in Halifax. And so I had, one of the biggest challenge I had is really, understanding that all that didn't matter. And, I was driving my own destiny. And I guess probably the biggest lesson I learned when I look back over my 24 to 26 years in our profession, which now I truly, I love my profession. I love what I do. Probably the biggest thing I learned is that I can actually give to the community so much more in the role that I have than if I would have made that switch and did 6 years of social work degree and became a social worker. What I realize is, your career doesn't define who you are, again, the contribution that you make in the community, and your career doesn't define the contribution you make in your profession. So I look back on that a lot and realize that now my contribution to charities, organizations, the community is 50 times bigger than it ever would have been had I made that shift to finish my 6 years as a social worker. So that is my path, and that is why I'm probably a different CPA CA. And it's really because I come from a community service background, and that background is really on the fundamentals that people matter and values matter. So sorry, a little long-winded, but that
No, I mean,
like
it was
Claudette, it's a little bit of in Glenn, it's a different path to get to where we are today.
No, it's very inspiring story, like the obstacles you overcame. And I think most of like 100+ students will relate to your story. Like, I think we all are going through the same boat, right? Struggling through our school, working full time, trying to make our fees work. And it's very inspiring. But the best thing is you got there and you did it. So now moving on to our next question. And we can start with Mr. Glenn this time. In your role with your organization, how do you keep your team motivated despite the conflicts and obstacles? Uh, Glenn, you are muted.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you
Okay.
now.
Okay, so at the outset, we had discussed the importance of vision and culture. So in our business, we actually operate every hotel or every restaurant is a standalone entity in a way. So the most important thing for us is that we identify the right manager for any given operation. I've often said that we can build the best product in the best location, but I'm only going to get the best results if I hire the right manager. Then what we find is if you hire a manager that's in tune, that person then will in turn hire supervisory staff that reflect their values, who in turn will hire line level staff. And what we found is when we're successful and we do hire, let's say, somebody that isn't a fit, we rarely have to do anything because the staff's standards are so high that they will effectively force the person out. So the first thing is that if you recruit properly for your business, the opportunity for conflicts and other sorts of things to arise are going to be lessened. But when they do have them, I found that there's a number of things that that you need to do. First of all, as I said, is to share a common culture and vision, and what the things are that you do to accomplish that. So then, by and large, you're talking about objective goals. And what I like to say is, we will measure our strengths and weaknesses objectively, and then subjectively and passionately, we will figure out how to put them into action. So I found that empowerment is crucial. Many of our staff obviously deal one-on-one with customers, and we found that staffs that are empowered will solve customers' issues or anticipate opportunities before they have to go up the ladder. Empathy is very, very important. And while we have employees at every level, we make sure, whether it's myself or any other senior person, that they spend time orienting in all of the departments in the company so they can empathize with our staff and understand what they have to deal with. I'd mentioned earlier common goals, and that's where we use our objective benchmarks. Obviously, involvement. When we do our business plans, when we make major decisions, we make sure that we get as many of our employees involved, not necessarily at the corporate level, but certainly at the hotel level where most of the employees are involved. And then finally, I think the most important thing is not to be afraid to talk about difficult topics. Oftentimes, conflict and obstacles arise simply because of misunderstanding or because proper information hasn't gotten out there or something has been communicated incorrectly. I found that when you have an item that or an issue that appears with it, have to represent together these days and have a friend about it and talk about what you have. Fortunate, we've had very little of those types of obstacles or conflict in the organization, and I believe it's because of that philosophy that we've been successful. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Glenn, for this valuable insight. Now, moving on to Mr. Jason with the same question. In your role with your organization, how do you keep your team motivated despite the conflicts and the obstacles?
And I think it's important for everybody to understand what a public accounting firm environment is like. It can be very stressful, lots of pressure. We are a volume-based business on the US tax side, and we are very deadline driven. So in that type of environment, it's really critical that we keep our team motivated, and most important, we keep everybody happy. The way I do it, it's pretty simple. It's just really living your values and, a real focus on culture. So for me, it's a team approach. It's a we versus me mentality, and if you focus on that team approach day to day, that will carry you through all of these challenges. And, what's interesting about the team approach is really, understanding that my success is really our team's success. So when our team succeeds, I succeed. And so the more you can, elevate their responsibility, the more you can empower your people, the more you can focus on a we versus a me. What you quickly realize is that when your team has success, you can have so much more success. In fact, I couldn't do half of the things I'm doing today from a professional perspective without the 50 plus team members, driving that business day to day for me. So when you're in a we kind of world, when you're in a team world, when you're in a world where culture matters, that helps continue to motivate your team day to day. But a couple big ones that I've learned kind of over my professional career too is being a humble leader always helps. And, I'm probably as humble as they get. So I stick to that humble kind of mentality, and I stick to living those values that I learned, when I was, in that community service kind of focus. So I stick to those values, and, I am pretty humble day to day. But lastly, I think just to stay motivated, and anybody that knows me, whether I'm at the rink or whether they see me at home with my family or they see me at work, I am 100% a positive individual. Everything in my life is glass half full, and nothing in my life is negative. I don't look at the downside of anything. I never think of the glass half empty, including the pandemic. I am a glass half full individual. Every day is consistent. It's positive, and my outlook is very, refreshing day to day. So when your leader is positive, when your leader is calm, when your leader is relaxed, when your leader is consistent, your team will follow you. So your team will follow, your values and your emotion and your day to day. So the way I keep my team motivated is really to focus on those things, and it makes a huge impact day to day.
Thank you so much, Jason. I myself believe compassion and motivation and positive approach is something that every leader should have, and it could really help with staff and driving business and everything. Now, moving with the same question to Claudette. In your role with your organization, how do you keep your team motivated despite the conflicts and the obstacles?
Thanks. I think my two colleagues covered a great deal of what I would have shared with you. I think what I would add, and I think it's all encompassing, but around engagement and trying to keep your teams engaged. And I think it's the focus on what value they're bringing and how they fit in to those goals or to your objectives, as Glenn talked about. I think empathy is brilliant, Glenn. I 100% agree. You have to understand where everybody is in order to help motivate them, because everybody's motivated differently. And not all folks on your team are motivated the same way you're motivated. So trying to understand how to motivate different personalities within your team. The other thing that wasn't touched on is around transparency. I think teams really respect leaders who are transparent with them. Nothing's worse than working in an environment where you're not really sure what people are thinking about your performance, what are the objectives of the business, where they're trying to lead. It's very difficult to feel yet you're engaged and empowered. And I think it trickles down, as Glenn said, about knowing what are the objectives, being transparent in what's going on, performance managing, helping people performance manage. We have to be honest with one another. We have to have difficult conversations. We have to have it. It's very easy to have exciting conversations. If you ask any manager, very easy to do a performance talk with someone who is extremely, is doing very well. It's harder to have the conversations on where you're trying to help someone become as great as they can be. And that's something that will motivate employees and motivate your teams. Respect also key in becoming a team manager or a leader of a team. Folks around the table, in order for them to feel empowered and to really progress, they have to respect not only their leader, but also their teammates. And I think that's key in building an environment and a culture where there's respect, even for different views. And I think that slides nicely into diversity. We have to be, as leaders, open to the diversity, show the benefits of diversity, and it will make the teams even stronger. And that's where being transparent and empowering employees to do what they do best. I had a mentor or manager at one point in my career, and there was one area of me that was, I always thought, you know, when people say you're going to be asked in an interview what your weakness is, and I always had one that I always talked about because it was an area where I wasn't the best. And we were having a discussion about my performance, and I said, you know, I really want to work on this part. And he says, Claudette, you can work thousands of hours on that. It will not become a huge major strength for you. Work on your strengths. That's what's going to make you move in your career. That's what's going to make you successful. That's what's going to make you happy. Work on elevating those strengths. You have to, you know, you don't want it to be a weakness, and it wasn't really a weakness. It just wasn't to the level my other strengths were. And that I always took that as a piece of advice, that I'm going to spend a lot of time just getting above water on a certain skill where I have all these other skills that could add value to any sort of company or to my career. So I leave that with you to think about.
Thank you so much, Claudette. You covered some really interesting points. Now moving on to our next question, and we can start with Mr. Jason. As a student or an individual in the early part of my career, what would I need to start learning and doing now to reach the success level you have reached in your job?
Yeah, I think Claudette said it best earlier on, you know, and I made a note about it, and that's build your skill set now. And you know, through her career, you know, she built her skill set every opportunity she had. So I would say to all students, you know, start building your skill set today. Don't let the years go by without really focusing on growth. And in particular, you know, I would start to build relationships and really focus on relationships. You know, your personal skills are very important. So build relationships with friends, family, community, work, team members, clients, professors, students, but building those relationships really matters. And it's one thing I see a lot in today's world where we're moving towards emails and messenger and text messages. You know, every time you do those things, you know, you miss that opportunity to have a personal interaction with that individual. So, you know, one of the things I try to do is ensure, you know, I'm minimizing the amount I use those types of communication vehicles, and continuously phone calls, meetings, chats, talk, but build those relationships now. Your personal skills are important, and the treatment of people really matters. So, you know, I would say You start doing that right away, start doing that now. Also start focusing on leadership. And one thing I've learned kind of in my journey as well is every single person, that I meet, or every single person on this call, has the ability to be a leader. Leaders come in all different, worlds and all different, makes, and everybody has that opportunity to be a leader. And don't wait to start being a leader. And small things make a huge difference. So I would say to you, leadership, build those leadership skills, build that skill set, and then really understand that it's your career and it's your life. So take charge of what you want, and then set goals and work towards where you want to get and what you want to achieve. And two small things I'll leave you with here, because I think it's something that I've lived by kind of in my life as well. One is, in today's world, hard work is critical as well. Don't ever take things for granted. Hard work will outshine in the end. So you get what you put into it. So work hard at it to make sure you give your best opportunity for success. And again, I marked 15,000 CPA exams or UFI exams. And, what I always suggest to our CPA students is, the ones that work the hardest, really are setting themselves up for the best chance of success. And I believe that in life as well. Work hard at it and it gives you the best chance of success. And lastly, I really think about this a lot as well. I try to set high expectations. So I would say set high expectations of yourself and really push to be exceptional in everything you do. And there's really this concept or this idea that you can be exceptional or you can be average. I really work hard to try to be exceptional in everything I do, whether it's being a father or being a Bedford Minor Hockey president or a team member. I set my expectation high that I will strive to be exceptional. And then even if I miss that target, I'm still really, really, really good. But if you set the bar at average and you say, I'm going to set the bar here, when you miss that average bar you set for yourself, you're actually below average. So set that bar high in everything you do, in every aspect of your life, and then try to achieve it. And that's what I would say, I think. But I think Claudette said it best. Start building that skill set today, because everything you do does make a difference long term.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Jason, for your insight. Now, moving on to same question to Claudette. I know, Claudette, you said a lot about it earlier, but if you would like to add something or just give a different perspective. So the question again is, like, as a student or an early individual in early part of my career, what would I need to start learning and doing now to reach the success level you have reached in your job?
So I would add, I guess I said a bunch of it earlier, and Jason did a great job. I would say find things that make you happy. You can be passionate. You can only be passionate about things that make you happy. You can fake it, but you can't fake it forever. But that's what I would do. Find something that makes you happy, build your skill set, get involved in your communities. You will learn more from that community involvement than anything. I think everyone asked me where I learned most of the stuff I've learned, and I think my kids have taught me a ton. Not only my kids, my nieces, my nephews, about resilience, about especially through this COVID thing, watching these children be able to adapt and the resilience. And I work for a company with 7,500 people, and we had 2 days to get everybody working from home. We made a decision on Wednesday, and everyone was working home by Friday. If you would have asked us to do that before COVID, we would have had a 15-person team. We would have had a budget of $1 million. We would have had a whole bunch of stuff that had to have happened before we could have made that happen. So I think we need to learn in all our circumstances. And I know, Glenn, your industry has been plummeted by this COVID, and we've been very lucky with our employee base, being able to keep folks employed and challenged. We support the tourism industry. You know, we did lots of things around local love, and you know, I do feel challenged by what you guys have been up against, and I'm sure we are going to be able to learn a lot from the experience of the tourism industry after this, we get this behind us. But every time you can take an opportunity to learn, grab it, take it. It will pay dividends as you move through your career. Over to you, Glenn.
Thank you so much, Claudette. And same question for you, Glenn.
Thank you. Before I do, I just want to go back to something that Jason said to reiterate it. You know, I read a recent report that 80% of people think they're above average. So therefore, if you're actually above average, you're going to be in a very select group. So it is worth something to shoot for. I probably got, I think, 4 things. Number one, I'd mentioned it earlier, love what you do. You can be great at what you do, but if you're great at what you do and you love it, it's going to be a whole lot better. So I've met people, many people whose job is only a way to earn money so they can do what they really love. So I would really hope that that whatever profession you're going to choose, that you love it. The second thing I would say is make learning a lifelong habit. And I just don't mean professionally. I mean a wide variety of subjects. Certainly your professional learning is important, but learning about other things helps round you out and I think helps put things in perspective. And you know, I know people who are in their 70s have gone back to university to get a degree, and I've always believed that one of the successes to longevity, in addition, obviously, to a healthy body, is an active and engaged mind. So I would stress that. Something that Jason said, again, something that I have practiced all my life, is network every opportunity that you get. It's amazing the people that you meet will network you to other people, and you never know at what point in your career one of those contacts is going to be beneficial, or you have a crisis, or you have an opportunity, and you can go back and rely on those people. And the other thing to understand is almost everybody is approachable. So I know that when we do events at the Mount and we have students present, sometimes the students seem a little bit bashful about coming forward and seeing themselves. That's really learning how to, your network, I would say, is you're going to face adversity during your career. It's almost unavoidable, but take adversity as an opportunity to learn and to turn it into a positive. And those tough times are not going to be nearly as hard to get through, and it will make you a stronger person in the long run. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Glenn. And now moving on to our next question, and this time we can start with Claudette. We have heard that mentors play a significant role in helping younger workers gain leadership skills. How does someone find a mentor? Does your organization have an actual mentorship program that provides access to mentors for new employees?
So our company doesn't have an official mentoring program. We've tried different things since the time I've been here. We've had them, we've had mentoring outside of the company. I think it's all about finding someone that fits you. I think it's very personal. I think there's mentors everywhere. I don't think it has to be a set up mentorship program. I don't think you have to say, will you be my mentor? I can guarantee you everybody I would associate as a mentor probably didn't even know they were a mentor to me. And I've had mentors within Emera. I've had mentors outside of Emera. I've had mentors that are friends. I've had mentors who are in the business world. I've had mentors who are in nonprofit world. I think there's just mentors everywhere, and it's really finding folks that you can learn from. You can observe them, you can have conversations with them. I believe it's just finding folks that you can pick their brains on. You know, it's all about trust with mentorship, and you need to trust the person, and they need to be able to have those open conversations. So I would say the official programs, I don't believe work as well as the ones that naturally happen. And take each interaction is no different than the networking that both Jason talked about, and Glenn, and look at that from a mentorship program. That would be my 2 cents. I know we're running out of time, so.
Okay, thank you so much, Claudette. And moving on with the same question to Glenn. So the question is, we have heard that mentors play a significant role in helping young workers gain leadership skills. And how does someone find a mentor? And does your organization have any mentorship program for your employees?
Well, I would tend to agree with Claudette. My experience has been is that I've had many mentors over my career, but none of them I would say was a formally assigned, appointed, or recognized. They were either people that took a liking to me or saw something in me that spent extra time, or they were people that I admired or I felt had something that could be offered that I tried to spend extra time around. Within our company, we have an informal mentorship, not that employees can come and ask for mentors, but if we see people in the organization that we think have unique talents or abilities, we will assign people, or we will make sure that extra time is spent with them. There are organizations out there. I know that the Tourism Industry Association of Nova Scotia has a mentor program. I know that the Intercontinental Hotel Owners Association has a mentor program for many second or third generation kids that are coming up in family businesses, or just those that are coming in. So I would suggest that if the organization you're with doesn't have a formal, you will probably be able to identify somebody who either takes an interest in you or somebody you want to spend time with. Or the other thing I would say is that there are professional organizations out there and associations that do have those programs. And if you look in your particular discipline or area of interest, you'll probably find an organization that can give you some direction on how you would go about that.
Thank you so much, Glenn. And taking the same question with Jason.
Yeah, so Grant Thornton does have a formal mentorship program. So we have formal feedback programs. We have formal coaching programs. So every Grant Thornton team member does have a very formalized coaching arrangement. So we focus a lot on that. And we do have a lot of other programs to really help mentor our team members, top to bottom, bottom to top. I think, kind of reiterating what Claudette and Glenn said, that you can really find mentors anywhere. And it's really about learning from the people around you. And I'll leave you just with this last story. I learned the lesson. This was a Mount student. We hired an individual who, had to go back, did 2 years at the NSCC program, then went and finished her accounting degree through the Mount, and then came on board to help us in the US tax practice. And what I realized is her impact on our practice was significant. And she became a real mentor for me, even though she was very junior in our practice. I learned a lot of life lessons from her, a lot of lessons about leadership and the impact people can have on the team around. She was just so positive and enthusiastic and uplifting that it really had a great impact on our team. So mentors really, truly can come from anywhere. And it's really just about learning from people. But it's critical that in that relationship, that you realize that you have to constantly be working on your leadership as well. And today I've learned and listened as well to Claudette and Glenn. And there is some real things that I will tweak from my leadership perspective and some great ideas that I will use in my day-to-day practice. So that relationship with a mentor is only as good if you're personally willing to make the tweaks and the shifts in your own personal leadership or your own personal skills. So I encourage everybody to, leadership is a journey. So I encourage you to listen, pick what you like, make the tweaks and shifts, because that will have a big difference, make a big difference.
Thank you so much, Jason. And that was my last question to all of our panelists. I hope all the students who were on this call had something valuable to learn from all three of you. And I really thank you all three for giving us this time and spending some time with our students and telling them what you have learned over your life. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.